first time I ever got a chance to really speak to a congregation. But my mother, one thing my mother always told me, she always reminded me that I was God's child. I came from a very Christian household, Pentecostal. Went to a lot of Sunday schools, a lot of church, still believe in God very deeply. But one of the things I want to tell you is this, that you're looking at a person that grew up in the North Lawndale area. I don't know if you're familiar with the North Lawndale area. In North Lawndale, there's very few kids that has a chance to have a dream and fulfill their dreams. You're looking at one of those kids that had a chance to escape, to defy the odds and the statistics. Didn't grow up with a lot of money. I was raised by a block. My mother, my father, I had both of them. I was fortunate to have both of them at home. But at the same token, it took neighbors to help because everybody shared a little bit because everybody worked. Mom probably didn't get home until late because she worked. Dad probably was still at work. So the neighbors always looked after the kids. I was a low-key kid. I was the one to let yourself in, wait till mom, don't get in trouble, even though sometimes we do. But in any event, as times went on, as I started to, I'm going to give you my testimony. You can understand how Impact has evolved. Because it's important that you understand the journey of the person behind Impact. Because it's just not just about this basketball that we do. It's so much more deeper than that. A lot of times people say Impact Basketball, but the real name of Impact, the real name of Impact and the legal name of Impact is Impact Educational Programs. It's much more than just basketball. We do much more than just basketball. Basketball is just the biggest foundation that people recognize what we do. But as I was growing up, I had some deficiencies in my life. I couldn't speak. What you see now is truly a lot of work, a lot of determination. It don't feel good when you get to a point in your life when people write you off. You're not really that person that's supposed to succeed in life. But through people, and God sent different angels in my life throughout my whole entire life. It helps you. It helps navigate you. It helps you give you that purpose. But I always had that burning desire. I always had that great love for people. Didn't know what it meant. I was very humiliated. I was very humiliated at a young age by not being able to communicate verbally. But at the same token, I had a great determination to overcome. When I went to high school, it was much better. I found out that through sports, I was able to communicate a little bit better. I was able to overcome a lot of things. But it was through that. But when you go to high school, and you get to the point where you think the athletic scholarship is the best scholarship you can get. Nobody really told me about an academic scholarship. So I was pursuing something that I could be pursuing multiple scholarships if I had the opportunity. But in any event, I just wanted to share that with you about me, about where I come from. You know, when you look at a person, I didn't grow up in Oak Park. I've been out living in Oak Park for about 30 plus years now. I was fortunate to have three loving young kids and a loving wife, okay? But at the most part, the reason why I got involved in doing what I'm doing is because of my kids. When I first moved to Oak Park, I worked just like everybody else. I wanted the best. I wanted a diverse environment for my kids. I thought Oak Park was a good community for me to allow that to happen, to help me make that happen, because I wanted my kids in a diverse environment. My whole thing right now by having my kids in a diverse environment, I didn't anticipate. I got twin girls. Both of them graduated from Oak Park River Forest High School. They went on. One graduated went on to college. One played college basketball, got her degree at Johns Hopkins University. The other one did play college basketball, but she went on to University of Illinois. Both of them doing very good with their life. Also, when my wife was expecting, I had the opportunity to, and I found out it was a boy. The first thing I did was say I have a boy, and I was glad, I was happy. So I went out and I purchased a basketball goal, and I put it in the driveway because my son would come. But while I put the basketball goal in the driveway, my daughters started gravitating to it, and they just out there horse playing around, just playing and playing. So as they started getting older, they went to St. Edmunds. And then all of a sudden they decided they was playing basketball. I didn't mind them playing basketball, but one year they decided that they weren't going to have a coach at the school. They weren't going to have a team at the school. They didn't have a coach. So that's where it started. It started with those two young girls in my life, and they came home begging and crying and said, Dad, you have to coach. Because I still was active playing basketball at that point. You have to coach, Dad. We need a coach. If you don't coach, we don't have a time. I said, no, your dad don't have time. And then they start crying, and then I said, let me check it out. So anyway, long story short, I ended up coaching at St. Edmunds. But I told the girls, and I told all the girls that if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. We're going to get better. So they evolved and got better. So, and they went on and won one of the first, they went to the championship of the Classic League in Oak Park. But from that moment, I didn't know what God had in store for me. I didn't know what, I did not know. Those girls evolved and they played. Other girls gravitated. So as my girls was going to go to high school, I was looking for a place for them to play. Back then, it wasn't a place for anybody to play basketball with unaffiliated. Either you have to be going to Fenwick, either you have to be going to Trinity, either you have to be in order to play travel youth basketball, you have to belong to a school's travel team during the summer. Only teams that you had in the area was Ma and Paul teams. Daddy had a team, Mama had a team. You had a lot of those springing up. So I was fortunate enough to find a team, and this team was in River Forest. A professor named Don Soche was running the team because his daughter Sydney was on that team. He was a professor, and at that point, I was just a parent. I just was sitting on the sideline. And as I sat on the sideline, and then, girls talk, because sometimes the girls come over and I do little drills with them, and they say he has to cancel the games because he's going out of town. So he asked me, would I stand in for him to go and coach? And eventually, this coaching while he's out of town led to just being to the point where I'm actually sitting on the bench with him. Make a long story short, because I only got 12 minutes. And I'm going to try to honor that. I'm going to wrap this up real quick. The biggest thing that arrived from that is I started being his assistant. And it ignited a love for the game back in my heart. With that being said, as things started to materialize and the girls started to blossom, as they went into high school, the organization name the team name used to be called the Lady Huskies, the feeder team for Oak Park River Forest High School. But when the girls went to high school, they did not want to be called the Lady Huskies anymore. And at that point, I told them that since you don't want to be called Lady Huskies, you guys come up with it, you girls come up with a name and decide what name you want. And they took about maybe, we was going to Wisconsin, the same trip that we normally take now. We was taking that trip back then. And as you rode back, they said, Impact. One of the girls said, Impact. And I said, well, if that's what y'all want. I said, that's all y'all want? I had a big SUV back then, and I could almost put all of them in the car. So, in any event, that's what they call Impact. So that's where Impact really started. It started as an all-girls program based out of River Forest, not Oak Park. But as things started to evolve, and word got out that the Impact was a girls team and it was pretty good, then that's when the doors started opening in Oak Park and at the high school. But make a long story short, Impact came into existence, the name Impact came into existence in 1999. If anybody know my old email address, it's impactpeople2000. I picked that email address for a purpose because I know one day I was going to get older and I won't remember when Impact got started. So I picked that email address, Impact People 2000, to remind me that when Impact got started. Right today, Impact been around 22 years. At that point, a group of parents invited me to their house after they heard that some of the boys teams in the area was not going to be in existence no more because they was run by mom and Paul teams again. So they got word about me and the girls, and they invited me in River Forest. They had about maybe 20 parents there. And I told them I can't do this by myself. And they said, you won't be by yourself. Those parents, they did a lot of the grunt work. As that started to happen, we started to evolve it even more. Because it's always more boys playing sports than girls. But then, excuse me, Pastor, okay, this is important that people need to know. As those girls evolved to being something, because they were changing the landscape in the community. They was changing. They was changing the landscape. As those girls didn't understand, they asked me, say, Coach, you're not going to let this be an all-boys program. I said, I promise you. Where we got one girl, we always going to have a girls program in Impact. That was important to me. At that point, we started evolving, and we started going into high school, having practice at high school. We started having more kids coming out of the community because they heard about we have a great training program. But in any event, as that happens, and we start evolving at the high school, and I started evolving as a person, as a coach, I got sick. I got extremely sick. I was about to die. I know I was dying. Everything was shut down in my body. I lost a lot of weight. My wife, she noticed, one coach noticed that Coach Ross, she's losing a lot of weight. But I was dying. Anything I eat, I had bad allergic reactions. And I ended up going to Russ Presbyterian in St. Luke's they told me that they couldn't find anything that was wrong with me. I went to Northwestern. And then they told me they really couldn't find anything. Then I had to do something. I realized I was in trouble. They wanted me to sign forms to say that they give them consent to practice medicine on me. I refused to do that. But at that point, God started putting angels in my life. He started bringing people in my life, people I didn't know. They said, you're going to be all right. God is with you. You're going to be all right. And at this point, I started to, that was one person. Then within another week, I was coming out of the restaurant. A lady stopped me. She stopped and grabbed my arm and said, God is all over you. God is with you. And one day, I was driving off the expressway and I just started crying. I just started crying. And that's where God entered that car and he talked to me. I said, God, I want my life to mean something. I said, I just want my life to mean something. He said, your life does mean something. My greatest treasure is people. He said, your job is to create as many leaders above the young kids as you possibly can. You need to create that leadership because the world's going to need it. This is clear. And at that point, I realized I prayed myself up. And that's when everything started evolving the way it is in Impact. People try to change the program because they want to chase trophies. They wanted me to stop at some point to stop training kids and only get the kids that could play basketball. And I didn't do it. Sometimes they got mad at me and they left and they took their kids other places. But we started evolving, then we started having more elite players in the program that going on to college. 80% of our kids play college basketball. See, Impact Mission is to mentor, develop leaders, to inspire and help the community. Our program is a very well diverse program because once I said God's greatest treasure is people. A lot of times people don't understand that. But we all have to understand that because guess what? We all want the same thing. We all grew our kids up and we want the same thing for our kids as anybody regardless of what color you are, regardless of what street you walk on. I found that when I came to Oak Park, there's more kids out here that was suffering just as I was suffering as when I was in the city. We have a job to do as being the elders right now. We have the job to do to be able to make sure our kids get what they need. If we turn our deaf ear right now when the world needs us, we in trouble. We in trouble, that's all I gotta say. But we gotta do better. We gotta go out and reach people. Thank you for having me. My name is Coach James Foster, Impact Basketball, Impact Sports Education Program.
Coach, we take a moment here. Can we pray for Impact Basketball? We thank you for opening up your heart to us and for telling us what God has done in your life. I invite you to stand where you are if you want to hold out your hands to pray. And let's pray for Impact Basketball, its community, and all it's done. And thank God for James's testimony. Gracious